Welcome to our workshop on social reading and digital writing in ScribaEpub. This is our contribution to the convention with hope, to promote especially educational value in English language teaching. Let's consider how to prepare students for social reading. We have to state the importance of the process to set norms for the class and to make students aware of the research-based importance of the experience. So, in this context, of course, is it important to see how we can select stories, short stories or complete novels for social reading. A reading group isn't just about reading. It's about reading in a contest which is fostered by the group and which in turn affects the whole experience of reading. Reading groups have always existed since the 7th century, but we have to make a special attention on what it is reading online, reading in the post-media era with remixing and sharing. And the choice of the platform is also important for what it can contribute. Let's start with the first example, which is based on a short story by Ernest Hemingway, Cat in the Rain. In this case, the process of social reading is based on a psychological reading game. A psychological game to interact with the writing. In this case, students are given the first paragraph one by one, but before interacting, paragraph after paragraph, they are asked to associate some words to the title of the short story. The words they associate to Cat in the Rain. And the aim of this activity, of course, is that of arousing students' curiosity towards the text that they are going to read, analyze, but especially the text to which they are going to interact. So the students are given the first paragraph of the story, and they are told that what matters is not to guess the right sequel, but to understand the game part of the exercise, to enjoy the game part of the exercise and see how they can see the development of the plot. So everybody, after continuing the little paragraph from the same length, can read aloud and give value. The teacher has to give value in the process of sharing. This is what happens in the classroom, and the students are given one by one the paragraph. This is the first one. There were only 2 Americans stopping at the hotel. They did not know any of the people they passed on the stairs on their way to and from their room. Their room was on the 2nd floor facing the sea. It also faced the public garden and the war monument. There were big palms and green benches in the public garden. In the good weather, there was always an artist with his easel. Artists liked the way the palm grew and the bright colors of the hotels facing the gardens and the sea. Italians came from a long way off to look up at the war monument. It was made of bronze and glistened in the rain. It was raining. The rain dripped from the palm trees. Water stood in pools on the grave paths. The sea broke in a long line in the rain and slipped back down the beach to come up and break again in a long line in the rain. The motorcars were gone from the square by the war monument. Across the square, in the doorway of the cafe, a waiter stood looking out at the empty square. At this point, students have some hints, as for example the artist, the waiter, and usually they go on exploring what is their function in the story, and they are not aware that these are just in the background, because in the next paragraph they are not going to find no artist and no waiter anymore. Some of the students try to include the cat in the story, who's the main protagonist from the title, but this is not the case for Hemingway, whose writing deflates their expectations. The American wife of the story saw the cat under a table, and Watts took it down and get the cat. The story continues up to the last paragraph. She's not able to find the cat, even if the padrone wants to help her, and then we go to the last paragraph of this open-ended story, but we mustn't tell the students that that is the last paragraph. She laid in the mirror down on the dresser and went over to the window and looked out. It was getting dark. I want to pull my hair back tight and smooth and make a big knot at the back that I can feel. I want to have a kitty to sit on my lap and purr when I stroke her. Yeah, George said from the bed. And I want to eat at a table with my own silver, and I want candles, and I want it to be spring, and I want to brush my hair out in front of the mirror, and I want a kitty, and I want some new clothes. Oh, shut up and get something to read, George said. He was reading again. His wife was looking out of the window. It was quite dark now, and still raining in the palm trees. Anyway, I want a cat. I want a cat. I want a cat now. If I can't have long hair or any fun, I can have a cat. George was not listening. He was reading his book. His wife looked out of the window where the light had come on in the square. Someone knocked on the door. Avanti, George said. He looked up from his book. In the doorway stood the maid. She held a big tortoise-shell cat pressed tight against her and swung down against her body. Excuse me, the padrone asked me to bring this for the signora. Now the students are invited to continue, and what they will write and share will be their interpretation to the story, their conclusion to the story, their hope to see how this story has to finish. Of course, this process is really important because we have inverted the process, the critical approach, the language style, the introduction on the life of Hemingway in these works comes later, after the students have experienced and shared literary appreciation while enjoying the game part of their reading and creative writing to share in ScribaEpub. And in ScribaEpub they can also record 2 minutes quotations and practice reading aloud. Then we can even go through the classical procedure, which is made of the critical approach, the language and style, and even the biographical montage concerning the life of the author, which could be as in a biographic montage made up of the pictures with special attention of his time spent in Italy during the First World War as an ambulance driver and his connection with Italy. So this is one of the ways to involve students, but it is also important to think of a complete novel, and I will give the example of Animal Farm by George Orwell. In this case we have 10 chapters in the book, and here you can see the screenshot taken from ScribaEpub which consists of Giada's prep book for her classmates, because in ScribaEpub you can open the book and share it with a group of students. In this case, she has shared the book with 10 students in the classroom. Once they have shared the book, they will be in charge of its chapter. So this is the preparation on the platform. The preparation in the classroom is different and is anticipated with a game again. So the students are told to think that they are Buddhist, so they believe in life after death, and they have to come back to life as an animal, think of the environment, and they have to tell what they hear and see and feel, and at a certain point they have to move and describe a precise action. In this way, we get students closer to the process that George Orwell did when he rented a farm to write Animal Farm, because these are animals on their own right. So they have to animalize themselves to become human, and they are prepared to read the novel on the two levels, the level of the fable and the level of the allegorical novel against Soviet Russia and the unjust system. In this case, each student is given a chapter. In the classroom, there is a sharing of a complete reading of the chapter, including as for example in the first chapter, when the animals are invited to gather in the barn. In the end of this chapter, Old Major says that he has a song, and the song, the tune of the song is in between Cucaracha and Clementine. So the students are invited to act the song, and that's the fun part in the classroom. Then they will discover that that song is a parody of the communist international song, as if, and that they can also find later how the first chapter is an allegory of the communist manifesto of Karl Marx and Engels, and Old Major is representing just the philosopher Karl Marx. It's a mixture of Karl Marx and Lenin. But before getting these historical hints, they work and appreciate just the writing of this novel. And now they're ready to go from novel reading to creative writing and interact chapter by chapter with some exercises. As for example, in chapter 9, they have to make notes on the powers of persuasion. And there are examples at the end of chapter 3 and 4 and 7. So the students share in the same book what has been done before, 8 and 9. And they have to note the use of rhetorical questions and exclamation. And then they ask to practice the Squiller method in small groups. And they can even invent the proposition. Squiller is the voice of the propaganda, the Pravda, so is the one who convinces the animals in the farm that Napoleon is completely right. In activity 2, they have to focus their attention on the most exploited animal in the farm, Boxer, and the double use of his death. The pigs, Sally's carcass. In the process from novel reading to creative writing, the students are even asked to interact with some artifact, as for example, they will be asked to design a memorial tablet for Boxer, whose real effect is to praise Napoleon and encouraging the other animals to adopt Boxer's way of life. And to do this, they can find details at the end of chapter 9. So this way of working will be a good practice to shift from reading Animal Farm as a fable to the allegorical level and the relationship between Animal Farm and Russia. And they start analyzing broken dreams. The tragedy of Animal Farm is that their virtue loses its reward. Always clearly is on the side of the exploited animals. And here they are asked to prepare materials for writing on the topic. Show how Orle captures the reader's sympathy for the exploited animals, so that he or she feels involved in the struggle, in the disappointments, and they are asked to compare the passage in chapter 2, Ecstasy, to the passage in the last chapter, chapter 10, which can be given the title of Disappointment. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. And again, some other activities of creative writing could be that of identify the stages in which the commandments were altered. At each point say why the alteration was made, and make 7 new commandments, swap them with your partner, and then the task is to find an opportunity to add or subtract in order to change their meaning with the amendments, as it happens in the novel. And then practice again the language of propaganda. Do you want Jones to come back? Squealer uses this question constantly to stop any complaint, and the actual condition under Jones are soon forgotten. So animals had nothing to which they could compare their present lives, nothing but Squealer's figures, which demonstrated that everything was getting better and better. This activity has been included in Documento of 15 maggio. Last year, the experience of social reading in ScribaEpub was part of this experience with students who contributed a real creative writing, starting from socializing their reading of the novel. And, of course, there were lots of interdisciplinary links. First of all, with the history, because the main protagonists in Animal Farm are the thoughtful, philosophical, and inspiring Karl Marx, Old Major, so Animal Farm and the example of behavior that can halt. The selfish, devious, corrupt, ambitious Napoleon, who represents any dictator, and, of course, Stalin, and the idealistic, good speaker, intelligent Trotsky, the antagonist, Snowball in Animal Farm, and, of course, the Tsar, Nikolai II, uncaring, cruel, irresponsible, and so now they can see how Animal Farm represents history, is a mirror of history from the Russian Revolution of 1917 up to the end of the Second World War. Students are now ready to identify the historical figures. These statements are Frederick and Pilkington in Animal Farm. Identify which is which and explain why. So the relationship with the history is quite ready to be exploited, and even the references with other protagonists of the story. So in this parallel between Animal Farm and Soviet Russia, the students are asked even to go deeper, as for example, after you have completed the worksheet on the main characters, play detective to discover how other details of Soviet Russia are referred in Animal Farm. And here they are invited to analyze this picture, which shows Alexei Stakhanov, a coal miner, who the Soviet government held up as an example to the other workers. By a combination of sheer hard work and a new method of cutting coal, Stakhanov mined 102 tons at one shift. Before him, the average was 6 to 7 tons. So the activity for the students here is that in this picture they can see Stakhanov exhorting workers to match his performance, and they have to say which characters reflects Stakhanov in Animal Farm and explain why. So the relationship with Boxer here is quite clear, and they can compare historical facts as well. So this is a way to interact with a complete novel and at the same time bring in their mind the connections with history and philosophy. So from broken dreams to what the students are doing now, and I will explain a little bit the relationship with what really happened in the classroom and what students can do in ScribaEpub. And I'll give an ongoing example. This picture was taken at the beginning of this year. All the students have brought this book, which is this one. This one that I will show you. So teenagers have great dreams. And now I'll tell you what we are preparing together with my colleague who teaches Italian literature. So the students have bought the book. We have a contact with the writer, who's Ali Esani, together with Francesco Casolo, who has also done a film version of some others publication by Ali Esani. So the students in the classroom read the book. What they are asked to do in ScribaEpub: book reading, and this is the Italian part of the work, and then this time sharing in ScribaEpub is something to connect this reading in Italian with the possibility of cope with a sort of translation which is not a usual translation, but it is as if they have to translate from a literary point of view. So what they are asked to do is quite complex, but they enjoy the challenge. And I will show you now how we have prepared social reading. This is the back office of ScribaEpub. As you can see here, we have translated each chapter. There are 21 students in the classroom, and each student has been given a chapter. Rome 2004 is the first chapter, 12 months before is the second chapter, and say, stay, don't go away, a bed in Rome, a day by the lake, and so on. What the students have to do here, the ScribaEpub give the possibility with this technical bottom to add students to share each ebook, and as you can see, to add collaborators to the ebook, and so they can go from reading on paper to transform the book in something which is a little bit multimedia. So in this part you have the list of the student, and they have access to each page and work on the page. Here you can find that we have an internal chat which is used to comment on what the students are going to select from each chapter in the novel. So this is the back office. What the students can do when the book is going to be published is just this. So on this part of the screen, I will show you that when the book is published by the first student, Jennifer Amabile, it's a book complete with a picture, complete with a video, and we are also analyzing the video by Francesco Casolo, who has written the book together with Ali Essaini, and Francesco Casolo is teaches history of cinema, and he has also published different lots of documentaries. Baradar is, for example, and we are examining this documentary taken from Ali's story. The students here choose some lines to comment, and what they have to do is to translate into English. This is their assignment. It's a sort of, in this case, it's a sort of social reading with multimedia elements, which could be places, pictures, or even little films, as in this case. This is an ongoing process, and this is just one of the parts. Then, even in ScribaEpub, they can also record, as you can see here, 2 minutes speech, so they can read. They can choose to read aloud the part in Italian that they have chosen, or the part in English. Then, when everything is finished, by the end of November, they will meet the writer. They will have the possibility even to ask questions, and this ebook will be published by the time as a contribution to the fact that the dreams are not to be broken but saved. At the moment in ScribaEpub we have 2,491 books published. I thank you very much for your attention, and it's been a pleasure to give a contribution to the 47th Convention, TESOL, Italy. Thank you very much.